Good afternoon, this is TTT Live. I'm Dike Rostant with a COVID-19 review. The Minister of Health, Terence Singh, has set the record straight on the opening hours of hardware stores, correcting false news which was being spread on social media platforms.
Some on social media hijacked, again, the Ministry of Health's letterhead, and then, in an effort to cause panic, included pharmacies and groceries. Let me state categorically, it does not apply to pharmacies and groceries. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago will have access to the full gamut of medical care, including pharmacies, will have full access to food, including supermarkets, throughout.
Concerned about what seems to be the loss of resolution by the public to stay at home, Mr. Singh reminds that it only takes one to lead to thousands being infected.
If from today we do not renew our spirit of cooperation with the measures, they are not meant to punish, they are meant to save lives. Let that not be our future as we move forward. And why? We have another chart to put up, a very simple message. There is no cure, there is no vaccine, and there is no standard treatment.
Now, we are experiencing a global pandemic for the first time in modern history. Social distancing measures have increased the need for accessing services remotely. Dr. Krystal-Jane Verasammy is a counseling psychologist and founder and managing director at Therapeutic Spaces Counselling and Psychotherapy Limited. We're very grateful that she has agreed to spend some of her time with us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Dr. Verasammy, and I want to start off by asking you, what is the difference between physical face-to-face and online counseling?
Hi, good afternoon, Dike. Thank you for having me. So I'm just going to speak a bit about the difference between physical, face-to-face counseling and online therapy. One of the things is that with online therapy, it's you miss that relational aspect. So you don't really so with face-to-face, you get that chance to meet your therapist in person, and you can build that relational rapport. So you actually experience that physical connection with your therapist. Whereas with online, it is you're using visual media, so it's very different in that sense. So that's one of the things that makes it different.
Now, speaking of online, are there different media or different ways? Does it have to be a hard and fast, or can there be, does it have to be using video, or can it just be voice? I'm wondering what are some of the different ways, some of the different platforms?
Yeah, definitely. So with online counseling, so online counseling falls under what we call telemental health counseling. And with telemental health, they're different. What it is that you use digital information and telecommunication technology. So that could be a computer, a laptop, a tablet, a mobile device, an iPad. It really depends on your therapist and what they choose to use. So if it's online therapy, then you would be using visual and audio technology. So therefore, you can actually see your client, and you'll be able to have a clinical assessment. Yeah.
Part of the reason I ask because I know that much of communication need not be words, as opposed to looking at physical cues, looking at nonverbal communication. So how does that play into online therapy or moods like this?
Yeah. And that's one of the challenges that we do have. I mean, it isn't a limitation with online therapy, is that when we make a diagnosis or we look at clinical observation, so a huge part of our work is looking at behavior. So the moment that a person enters our therapy office, how they sign, how they sit in the therapy room, how they sit in the waiting room before they greet us, those are all nonverbal communication that we get, and we're able to make clinical observations on their behavior. So limitation with online therapy is that we lose that. But with online therapy, we can still apply diagnostic tools, which would be a series of questionnaires that could be administered. So therefore, with diagnosis, we could possibly diagnose for some mental health issues, but not for all mental health issues.
At this point in time, is there a trend towards remote diagnosis? And I use the term diagnosis guardedly because I know there have been some professionals who've refrained or wanted to kind of shy away from using the word diagnosis when it happens in a remote setting.
Yeah. So with diagnosis, it is a very clinical and medical term. However, as a mental health professional, it is helpful for us in terms of diagnosing a client so that we would know like what treatment plans that we're going to administer for them. And also for psychiatrists, if it is that they have it, they diagnose, then they would know like what type of medications. However, like I said, I'm a counseling psychologist, so I work with a wide range of patients experiencing a series of mental health issues. And sometimes you may not necessarily need a diagnosis to seek therapy. Maybe that you're experiencing stress, anxiety, maybe that you're not coping well, maybe your emotions feel a bit high and you're unable to regulate them. So therefore, therapy could be online therapy. It's not necessary for diagnosis, but it could just be for persons who are experiencing some sort of psychological distress at this time.
Do you see a current trend or current increased need or people gravitating towards online therapy?
Um, Definitely. I mean, in my own practice, I arranged online therapy to as a duty of care to my clients, so that they would be able to have and access mental health services. And I also opened it up to the wider public in the sense that, that there is a pandemic going on, that there is heightened anxiety, there is increased fear, there's increased uncertainty, and a lot of unknowing of the future. And therefore, I think it's important that mental health services could be accessible to the wider population. And, it is a stepping stone or like the first step in terms of getting help in some way.
I'm wondering though, what are the different types of services you offer? I didn't ask for an overview, so I guess I'll be asking that now. And I ask that because some people may want a one-off, some people may want a long-term raft of therapy. Is group therapy possible, for instance, a family at home at this point in time, or members of an NGO or other bodies on the front line?
Yeah, definitely. So with the use of technology and the information technology that we have today and the communication devices, it is quite possible with secure platforms. So you're gonna get like a platform that has like end-to-end encryption, so it creates that confidential service. And it definitely could be helpful for if it's for young persons. So in fact, in my own practice, a lot of the young persons they actually like the online therapy because they can communicate better, and they feel less intimidated as opposed to face to face. It could also be used for families. For families, it could definitely be used for couples as well. It could be used for individual. It could be used for couples. It could be used for groups. It could be used for group. Yeah, and it also could be used for young people. Yeah.
I like you talking about using this method as a first step, possibly, because with the thrust to decentralize mental health care in Trinidad and Tobago, I can still see there being pieces of stigma attached, unfortunately, to saying, okay, well, I'm going to somewhere in my community for mental health treatment where, okay, well, someone may see me and want to talk about me in that light after.
Yeah. And definitely, I think that's one of the huge benefits of online therapy is that it helps to reduce the stigma, right? So no one knows that you're doing therapy. If it is that it's within the comfort of your own home, it's within, and I say comfort tentatively because there's some homes where we know that it's not a safe space right now. So that it is important that one, you have a safe space that you can do online therapy. But one of the benefits of it is that it's quite convenient, it's easily accessible for persons who are in remote places. So whereas it may have been very difficult to get your therapy to get to the therapist's office or transportation issues, stigma in terms of being seen entering into a therapy office, um, the truth is that the government has been doing a lot in terms of destigmatizing mental health. And I also think TTAP, which is the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists, also do a lot in terms of destigmatizing mental health. But yet in the society, as always, there is always stigma. And one of the things that alleviates that stigma in accessing health is online therapy.
Have clients asked for advice about the COVID-19 virus itself? And if so, how have you treated with that?
Sorry, Vicky, could you repeat?
I'm wondering if clients have asked you specifically about advice re-COVID-19, and if so, how have you treated with that?
Okay, is it advice that you're asking for with COVID?
No, have you found yourself in a situation where, as opposed to just saying, okay, as opposed to dealing with uncertainty or the client themselves, they're asking you about advice for COVID-19?
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things as a therapist is really about me understanding the nature of what it is that the client is experiencing. And for each person, it's very different. For some, it may be financial issues, financial constraints with loss of jobs. For others, it may be learning how to adapt with their partners and their children. Because this, if you think of it, it's a crisis. It is a form of trauma that we're currently experiencing as a nation, but it's collective trauma. So the first thing is trying to acknowledge your anxieties and your fears. What is driving this fear? What is causing me to feel anxious right now? And a huge part of it is identifying control. What is it that I have control versus what are the things that I don't have control?
Now, you already started to give us some general tips or strategies to help manage with this anxiety, and we would love to continue the conversation, but can you share your contact information for people who would want to take that first step?
Yeah. So in terms of taking the first step of seeking therapy, one, I just want to say that taking a first step for therapy is it takes a huge amount of courage, but it means that you're doing something for yourself. Maybe right now you're feeling like I have the time, that I'm not working, I'm at home, and I am experiencing some sort of psychological distress or anxiety, depression. And it is about just making a phone call, right? First up, could possibly be looking online, doing a Google search, checking for the TTAP, Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists website. And there you can find a list of psychologists and persons that could be helpful. TTAP also has a hotline, in fact, that you can call, and then they can direct you in terms of what type of therapy you need, or maybe they can provide therapeutic support.
All right, so we want to thank you very much for your time, Dr. Verasammy, and actually starting to get that message across for the people who will need it, even the people who may not think they need it at this time. We continue with this COVID-19 review in the sense that we are looking now at the effects of COVID-19 across the Caribbean region. Jamaica has closed to 200 cases of COVID-19. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, in a release on Sunday night, advised that 23 new cases of the virus have been confirmed in Jamaica, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 196. In Antigua and Barbuda, National Festivals Minister Darrell S. Matthew has announced that Antigua's premier summer festival, Carnival 2020, has been cancelled. In an interview on ABS TV on Sunday, Mr. Matthew explained why this needed to be done.
We are facing an unprecedented crisis, an unprecedented pandemic, the COVID-19 virus. And when we consider all the factors that come along with this situation that we are now faced with, social distancing, the economic fallout that will come following this crisis, the health concerns of the public of Antigua and Barbuda, it was really a very easy decision to make that Carnival 2020 should be cancelled.
Here we are, but we are indeed encouraged by the last few days.
Barbados also announced on Sunday that it would be cancelling their Crop Over Festival due to COVID-19. The National Cultural Foundation, which organizes the festival, said it's not the first time that the annual event, a major tourist attraction, has been cancelled in its more than 200-year history. And health officials in Grenada are claiming victory in the fight against the spread of COVID-19. Grenada has had no new cases since April 10, and an easing of restrictions is set to begin from today, Monday. The state of emergency will remain in place for the time being, however. Attorney General Dashan Ramdani, speaking at the news conference, said we will enter into a more relaxed environment as far as the lockdown is concerned. And that's what's trending on COVID-19. Remember, you can join us for live coverage on TTT, Talk City 91.1 FM, Sweet 100.1 FM, Next 99.1 FM, as well as on Facebook at TTT Live Online for all your COVID-19 updates. Thank you for joining us. On behalf of the TTT crew, I'm Dike Rostant. Bye for now.